Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a fascinating set of sources here about something called the HEG story. And, well, it hits on something vital for all of us, our health and the system around it.
Absolutely. And what these documents really lay out is a stark contrast, you could
Yeah.
say, between healthcare as it often is now, which they argue is mostly about dealing with sickness after it happens.
Right, reactive.
Exactly. And this other vision, a totally different model focused on wellness, prevention, really getting to the roots of why people get sick.
It feels like they first diagnose the problem pretty bluntly, actually, and then they offer this, well, this completely different way of thinking. So for you listening, our mission here is to unpack the key ideas. We'll look at the problems they see, the new models they're suggesting, and, the impact they think this could have.
Yeah, help you sort of navigate through it all.
Okay, so let's start with the problem definition. How do these sources describe the current state of health and healthcare? They don't pull any punches, do they?
No, they're quite direct.
Hmm.
One thing that jumps out is that global health ranking, Bloomberg data they mentioned, puts the U.S. 33rd globally for health.
33rd, wow. And only 5th in the Americas. That seems surprising, given the spending.
It does, and they go deeper than just rankings, looking at lifestyle. There's a stat mentioned, less than 3% of Americans meet the key criteria for a healthy lifestyle to cut heart disease risk.
Less than 3%.
Less than 3%. It's a tiny fraction. And naturally, this feeds into huge costs. Global health spending, $7.8 trillion back in 2017. U.S. spending alone is around $4 trillion a year now.
And here's that phrase they use that really sticks. Healthcare in reality is all about sick care. It is all about billing for sickness and not being proactive for addressing health.
Yeah, that sums up their core critique. The system, as they see it, is fundamentally reactive. It kicks in after the problem's already there.
And this sick care focus creates massive headaches for businesses, right? That's detailed in the Problem of Healthcare 2011 bit.
Oh, definitely. Corporations are facing costs that are just spiraling and unpredictable. They cite a 131% increase over 10 years. Some companies saw single-year jumps of over 40%.
40% in 1 year. How do you even budget for that? It's incredibly volatile.
Exactly. And they note healthcare was already 16% of U.S. GDP back in 2011, heading towards maybe 31%. It's described pretty vividly as a ticking financial time bomb for companies.
Okay, so that's the bleak picture they paint. Costly, reactive, not delivering great health outcomes. What's the alternative perspective they offer?
Well, this is where they introduce the big shift, moving from the sickness model towards a wellness model.
Right. Sickness model, reactive, services after you get sick.
Correct. And the wellness model, proactive. It's about individuals, companies too, getting involved much earlier, providing services before illness really takes root. And the key thing, they stress, is looking for early signs of decreased function, not just waiting for a full-blown disease diagnosis.
That focus on function seems tied to a broader idea. They discuss reductionism versus a systems approach.
Yeah, this is fundamental to their thinking. Reductionism is that classic scientific method, break complex things into smaller bits, divide and conquer.
Like studying individual trees to understand the forest.
Exactly. And it's been incredibly useful, no doubt. But they argue it has limits, especially in medicine, because the human body isn't just separate parts. It's a deeply interconnected system.
So the systems perspective, or holism, looks at the whole thing.
Right. It appreciates how the parts interact, the characteristics that emerge from the whole system working together. You can't understand the forest just by looking at individual trees, is the idea.
And applying that to health.
They argue we need a health systems engineering approach,
Yeah.
thinking about mind, body, spirit as this integrated network and aiming for optimal function across the whole system.
Which leads naturally to another really interesting idea in these sources, that many modern diseases are actually linked to an underlying condition, aging itself.
Yeah, this is a major point. They suggest thinking about aging not just as inevitable decline, but maybe as a treatable condition. They bring in Dr. David Sinclair's point. Even if we cured cancer and heart disease, life expectancy might only jump a couple of years.
Because we'd still be aging.
Exactly. So for really big gains in, healthy lifespan, you have to tackle aging as the root cause.
That's a paradigm shift. And they cite research suggesting aging could be classified as treatable. The economic numbers they quote are astronomical. $38 trillion potential value for a 1-year increase in life expectancy.
And $367 trillion for 10 years. It just shows the sheer scale of the potential impact if we could actually slow aging.
And this connects back to the systems idea too, right? Mentioning epigenetics.
Yes, the idea that it's not just our fixed DNA, but how our lifestyle, diet, stress, environment influences which genes are active. It's about that dynamic interplay within the system.
Okay, so we have the problem, the systems view, the focus on aging. How does HEG, according to these sources, propose to put this into practice? What does their holistic approach actually involve?
They lay out a wellness center's approach to health, structured in 3 stages for an individual. Stage 1 is restore health. This is about dealing with existing issues, allergies, arthritis, inflammation, whatever's currently causing problems, and getting the person back towards a baseline of health.
So fixing what's broken first, then what?
Then maintain health. This is about, well, staying healthy once you've restored it and actively working to delay the effects of aging. Keep things running smoothly.
And the final stage?
Optimize health. This goes beyond just maintaining. It's about pushing towards greater longevity, vitality, peak performance, really maximizing well-being.
And the sources say they use member-specific solutions, with functional medicine being key. Can you unpack functional medicine as they describe it?
Sure, they frame it as medicine evolved for the 21st century's chronic health problems. It's very personalized, focusing heavily on primary prevention, stopping things before they start, and finding the underlying causes of chronic disease, not just masking symptoms.
So not just managing high blood pressure, but figuring out why it's high to begin with.
Exactly that. And it's based on several principles. One is biochemical individuality, basically. Everyone's unique genetically and environmentally, so their treatment needs to be unique too.
Makes sense. What else?
Patient-centered care is huge. They use that quote, "It is more important to know what patient has the disease than to know what disease the patient has."
Yeah.
Understanding the whole person.
I like that. Focus on the individual's context.
Right. And also seeing the body as this interconnected web. Immune problems might link to heart issues. Diet impacts hormones. It's all connected. And health isn't just not sick, it's positive vitality, building up your body's reserves.
They quote Dr. Daryl Hobson saying functional medicine doctors really spend time listening, digging into the patient's history, looking at genetics, environment, lifestyle, all those interactions.
Yes, it's about understanding that complex web for each person. The goal, they say, is to transform the practice of primary care. It's less about just knowing facts and more about having a process to integrate all that knowledge and focus on improving function, using the patient's story as the guide.
From complex scientific research comes functional simplicity. That's the mantra.
That's the one, taking all the complex science and making it practically useful for the patient.
Okay, so that's the philosophy. How does HEG deliver this? What do the centers actually look like?
Well, they describe a couple of tiers.
Yeah.
There are premier wellness centers aimed at the high-end executive market. Think luxury spa meets integrated medical team with bundled memberships.
Okay, premium level. And the other?
Health performance centers, targeted more towards the low to mid-market. The idea is to have different access points.
And the member experience itself sounds crucial. A one-stop shop.
Yeah, designed to be accessible, empowering. You get professional support, but you're encouraged to take charge. You get a personalized plan, a personal wellness advisor to guide you, and importantly, you track your progress. Biomarkers, scorecards, that kind of thing.
That tracking seems key for keeping people engaged.
Definitely. Seeing the data, seeing improvement, it builds confidence, keeps you motivated, reinforces that proactive approach.
Dr. Robbie O'Dwyer's perspective adds detail here. Access to advanced tech for assessment and treatment.
Yes, and he emphasizes their view that chronic inflammation, right down at the cellular level, is the root of most diseases. So the programs use assessments to find your specific inflammation triggers and drivers.
And then introduce interventions to reverse those causes.
Exactly. Move the body back towards balance. It's presented as a team effort, with the patient being the key player. The assessment is really thorough history, records review, labs, other functional tests.
And then the team develops the plan. Goals seem straightforward. Decrease inflammation, feed the cells properly.
Right, using things like detoxification, strategies for cellular function, integrative tech, specific nutraceuticals, education, fitness, a whole toolkit.
And it's not a one-off. They mention ongoing monitoring with objective data.
Yeah, repeating assessments to see what's working, adjust the plan. It's dynamic. And they need a way to manage all this info.
The EMR-AHR system, electronic records.
Right, a robust system to keep everything organized. And importantly, members get 24/7 online access to their own records, their performance scorecards. Transparency.
Plus, partnerships with doctors, scientists, hospitals, and those bundled benefits like the advisor, classes, trainer. It sounds very comprehensive.
It's designed to be. And the vision goes way beyond just these centers. They talk about applying the platform much more broadly.
To different markets? Like who?
Well, functional medical doctors themselves, corporations, obviously, health clubs, hospitals, even government bodies.
The corporate wellness programs seem like a major focus, a solution for those spiraling costs we talked about.
Exactly. Offering preventive services directly to employees. They mentioned retainer-based co-op programs for groups, maybe 600 to 1,000 members.
And a key part is access to specialists with proven track records, like that cardiologist example.
Yes, the Houston cardiologist, who apparently had 0 hospitalizations for heart attack, stroke, or diabetes issues among 3,000 patients over 2 years by focusing on prevention. That's the kind of outcome that translates to huge savings for an employer.
And HE tracks this, provides ROI data.
That's the plan. Quantify the savings, averted costs, performance metrics, working with actuaries, making the business case clear.
Then there's the pioneering medical tourism angle. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, for conditions that do need hospital care, they identify top hospitals, specifically mentioning India, where doctors might be US-UK trained, but costs are way lower.
That cost comparison was striking $150K versus maybe $15K for cardiovascular surgery.
That's the example given. HEG would facilitate this, track outcomes for the employer's ROI, and manage post-op care, too. It's another cost containment strategy.
And strategic alliances, Practice Fusion, Trendline Health.
Right. Practice Fusion gives access to anonymized health record data for research. Trendline Health helps companies manage costs without just cutting benefits or raising employee costs, challenging that typical 12-month purchasing cycle. It fits the HEG model.
So the overall value proposition for the HEG platform is science-based, cost-effective, constantly updated.
Pretty much. Tracking, monitoring, research, updating protocols, value for the individual and the providers or payers.
Let's break down those benefits they list for numbers.
Bundled services, those scorecards for tracking, personalized programs, the advisor, easy access, quality care focus, tailored advice, simple scheduling, 247 records access. The big promise is averting illness, better quality of life, longevity, managing health actively. That thrive, not just survive. Tagline.
Okay. And for doctors, professionals involved.
Potential shift to quality-based pay. Maybe fewer patients, but better income, like a concierge model, better tools and protocols, potentially less effort for better results because they're hitting root causes, easier record access, telemedicine links, training, support.
Makes sense. For corporations and institutions.
It's all about tackling that ticking time bomb. Fewer sick days, healthier employees who might have chronic issues, better productivity, morale, recruitment, retention, and the bottom line, significantly lower premiums and claims, measurable ROI. They even mention the idea of specific wellness insurance.
And finally, strategic partners, investors or allied companies.
They position it as a first-mover advantage, a unique integrated model, maybe 20 years ahead, poised for market share in the huge wellness industry. Clear ROI potential, scalable globally, built on paying for performance.
It's a very ambitious, multifaceted vision, and they include a wellness for all vision, too.
Yes, they mention that as part of the original and ongoing mission, using profits from the main centers to help fund centers in lower-income areas, seeking grants, trying to broaden access.
It comes back to that philosophy. Wellness is affordable, illness is expensive, and true health is priceless. And they nod to Paul Zane-Pilser's predictions about the wellness industry.
Yeah, framing it within that massive economic shift towards wellness.
To make the functional medicine part more concrete, they use type 2 diabetes as a case study.
Right. A huge issue. Massive cost, $174 billion in the U.S. in 2007 alone, they cite. High lifetime costs, serious complications.
Heart disease, stroke, kidney failure, neuropathy, amputations. Really grim.
So instead of just managing symptoms once diabetes hits, the HEG approach, using functional medicine, focuses upstream. On prediabetes, blood sugar issues, finding and reversing the root causes to stop it progressing.
Restoring function to prevent the disease entirely. Their first clinical trial is on cardiometabolic syndrome.
Yes, that cluster of conditions, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, bad cholesterol, belly fat that affects so many people and is often a precursor to diabetes and heart disease.
It really shows the strategy in action. Get ahead of the problem, fix the underlying dysfunction.
Exactly. Prevent that whole cascade of chronic illness that defines so much of the current healthcare burden.
Okay, so pulling this all together from our deep dive into these sources, we've really explored a proposed, quite radical shift away from sick care, reactive, costly, symptom-focused towards wellness, proactive, aiming for cost-effectiveness, focused on outcomes.
And using this holistic systems view with functional medicine digging into root causes like aging and inflammation.
The sources detail a platform to deliver this personalized plans, tracking corporate solutions, even medical tourism. The common thread is data, outcomes, and getting to the why behind health problems.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about regarding the personal value, that idea of actively managing health, aiming to thrive, and the potential societal economic value seems immense if we could really tackle aging and chronic inflammation effectively.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought, maybe a provocative one drawn from all this. Is this shift from just treating sickness to actively building wellness? Is it inevitable? Could models like this, that focus on systems, on aging, on functional roots, be the way we finally make health truly affordable and achieve that priceless well-being?
It's certainly food for thought as we all navigate our own health and watch how healthcare evolves around us.